Welcome to the Tow Club Industry Podcast. Today, I'm really excited about our guest on the program today, and that's Gavin from House of Wreckers. It's nice to have you, man.
Thanks for having me. This is great, and I'm ready to go and ready to talk and happy to be here.
I appreciate that. Obviously, you and I have had a relationship for a long time, and you're entrenched in this industry. I feel like I'm somewhat entrenched in this industry, and we're all just trying to kind of make our way through life here. I got some questions for you, but first, why don't you tell us kind of what you do? I mean, in the event that people are watching this and they don't know, what does House of Wreckers do? How do you, what is your core kind of task over there at House of Wreckers?
Yeah, thanks for having me. We're excited about this. It's cool to have this podcast, and like I said, happy to be here. So House of Wreckers was started by my father, John, in 1976. He was selling trucks prior to that in the 60s, believe it or not, and he's still here, which you've met him, you know him. And I'm proud to have worked with him since January 2nd of 99. I've been here, and I've seen a lot of things over the close to 25 years, whatever it has been. And to work with him closely has been a highlight of my life, and I'm very proud of what he's accomplished and what we are today. And also I do want to mention Mike, who's been with us for close to 40 years too, who is like the backbone of our company. And without him, God, I don't know where my dad and myself would be. So, of course, my dad's wife, Cheryl, too, is also a part of the company and a major part, and helps facilitate the admin side, which is great. But Mike, like I said, is the backbone, and he's sort of the liaison between, as you know, between me and you, the towers, which really sometimes bridges the gap because he's the more mechanical, the technical part of the tow trucks, whether it's electrical or PTO and pumps or you name it. We're just on the side of selling, of course. But we've been here in San Carlos now, California, since maybe 91. We bought the building here, and we think it's centrally located for the Bay Area, which is helpful for you towers to come in and see us face to face. And, we're all accountable. We're here 90% of the time, and the other 10% of the time, as you know, I'm out seeing people. So it's good to shake hands and see faces and look people in the eye and be a part of their lives, not only as part of the tow industry, but knowing about your kids and where you're living and what you're doing. I think that's a big thing, because anybody can sell from a computer like this and say, oh yeah, it's 100,000 and it's just the cheapest price you can imagine. But there's so much more than just price when it comes to the tow industry, as you know.
Yeah. No, I mean, first of all, I can appreciate the family business aspect because I'm involved in a family business as well. And I think that, or at least I should say, I hope that family businesses can continue to have success, because in today's sort of business environment, one of the concerns that a lot of people have, particularly small businesses that are clients of yours, let's say, a lot of towers are small businesses. And one of the things that I can attest to that they really don't like, and this is judging, social media conversations, comments, and threads that you read, is, they say, hey, like, I did business with this guy 40 years. Now some big outfit bought him, and I've got to talk to some guy in another state, and I don't know him. And it's definitely a concern people have. So I'm hoping that, in conjunction with what you do and what we're doing with software, I'm hoping that towers can realize that, there's a value beyond, as you mentioned, simply getting the lowest price. There's got to be a value in that. That does bring me to my next question, though. I would like to know, sort of what brands of towing equipment you sell and service. Do you have new? Do you have used? And also, what's kind of involved in building a truck? I mean, how does that process start? So I would love to, I sort of know because I've bought trucks from you in the past, but I think our listeners would be interested to know how that goes.
Yeah, it can be a process depending on who you're working with. If it's a long-standing relationship like you and I have, we've come to sort of expect what you want and how you want it. So that can be pretty seamless, I'd say. There's usually no big surprises. But the brands we sell are a blanket of brands from our factory, Miller Industries. They have Chevron, Century, Vulcan, Holmes, Champion, and their competitor would be like Jerdan or Kylar or God, some of the Danco, some of these other brands. I think their main competitor is Jerdan. But with the blanket of brands that they sell, I truly believe that they're the best quality. And we've been approached from other manufacturers to say, hey, can you start selling our equipment, and trying to get us away from Miller Industries. But Miller Industries is a great partner to work with, and somebody my dad has formed a long-standing relationship with. So it's been great. The process of getting a truck, it depends. Somebody like yourself, like I said, we kind of know what's teed up for you and what we need to do, so that it becomes a little bit more seamless. Somebody new that comes in, they might be sort of shopping around, looking at different brands or different distributors to buy from different dealers. And you would think it'd be pretty cookie cutter, right? With tow trucks and flatbeds. And, oh, the rollback goes back and down and it's an international.
Sure, yeah.
But it's much more than that, because we tailor it to the company's needs. For you, let's say, you need self loaders and private property, and you tailor your needs for such. Whereas somebody else, AAA, let's say, they're more diverse and need sort of this, and then maybe a company that even has AAA, they may venture out and do some independent stuff, hauling forklifts or containers or limousines or something, or even something heavier. So the process can be varied depending on the customer's needs.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense, and it also makes a lot of sense that you pointed out that like my towing company, we have a specific need, and others may have different needs. They may work for law enforcement agencies specifically. They may do other things, and that certainly plays a large part into what you're building. My next question to you, and this is something again that, as you know, I'm kind of plugged into the social media aspect of the industry. I feel like it gives me and my business an opportunity to understand sort of what's going on. It doesn't tell the whole story, obviously, but it's somewhat of an indicator. My next question is, how has the pandemic affected your ability to fill orders? Are you still experiencing obstacles as a result of the pandemic and the sort of carnage, I should say, that has come with that? I'd love to, and I think a lot of people would like to see how that goes.
Yeah, certainly. Thank you. There's certainly been obstacles, no question. My obstacles are different than your obstacles, I'm sure, different sides of the tow industry. It is, in the 25 years I've been here, I would say, through 07 and stuff, the financial crisis, that was difficult, but never much more difficult than the pandemic we've been through, in particular with getting equipment. It has been absolutely brutal finding basically the cab and chassis to marry with the beds. So at first it wasn't so bad, things were kind of moving. And truly, I don't know what the reason is. I hear these, scuttlebutts, China with computers and chips and things like that. And it just, whatever it is, it's completely like not stopped, but slowed with getting product. And if it's not a cab, it's getting the product from Miller Industries, the back end, the rollbacks, or the wrecker tow body. So in getting the tow body, in this very office here, we had some top dogs from Miller Industries come in. They had a meeting in Sacramento and thought they'd stop off and see us and talk a little bit about the pandemic and what was going on. And here we are with masks and everything. California's been pretty strict with stuff, as you know. Yeah. Good and bad, however you want to take it.
Yeah. It's still a hassle, however you feel about it. It's a pain.
Yeah, no question. It is. It's we're in this gray area in some aspects, but when they came here, they were having issues with their suppliers on getting cylinders and valve bodies and electrical components, so much so that they were looking outside their normal sources. They were looking to Europe and even beyond on trying to get product, and they were paying more and getting less equipment, and the prices have skyrocketed. And I hate it, you hate it, we all hate it. So here we are with less equipment at higher prices. So people have waited upwards of 2 years to get equipment. And it's been frustrating as all get out, because somebody, like for instance, a new customer of mine, I still have this one gentleman out in the valley. I mean, I feel so bad for this guy. He's a new customer. We've made a deal. I ordered a Dodge as a 22. It still hasn't been built, and they're doing 24 models now. I ordered the cab back October 21st, 2021. I still don't have it. And it's all about the package, he says, or excuse me, Dodge tells me that he ordered, they can't seem to get. So we could go on for this with hours about getting product, but nonetheless, it's been a hassle on marrying the two, the cab and the bed together. It's been so challenging. People have been very patient and waiting. Thank God we have loyal customers like yourself that are willing to wait for good service and a good product at the end result.
And it's probably, Gavin, fair to say that this affected all dealers, would you say? I mean, it can't be just obviously House of Records. I mean, that would be, it's all dealers. Am I right?
Yeah, we're getting calls from people that we've never even heard of from all over the United States and beyond. Hey, I'll take whatever you got.
Wow.
And it's from a 720 area code, which might be like Wisconsin or something. And we're like, well, we know the reason you're calling is because your local dealer or someone you work with can't get it. So we're getting calls still to this day from people, and which is fine. We'd love to do more business. We just don't have the product to support it right now, unfortunately. I mean, if I had 10 trucks sitting out here right now, they could all be gone in a week, no question.
Wow. So that brings me to a follow-up on that. Obviously, the masks have came off, right? So the idea here is, oh, well, the pandemic's over. So my question to you is, once the supply chains improve, and my understanding is based on conversations that I've had with you and others in the industry, that the supply chain hasn't completely improved. But once it does, what do you anticipate will happen to pricing, availability, build times, lead times, et cetera?
Yeah, I think all that will come together much more efficiently. I think pricing will sort of, what's the term I'm looking for? Stabilize. I don't think things will jump up. We won't see these big swings that we've seen. I mean, we've seen, let's say in particular, cab and chassis go up $11,000, $12,000, $13,000 in 1 year from Kenworth, just like that. And so it's been frustrating from our standpoint. If Joe Blow buys the truck from us, we've signed a deal. We don't take deposits here at House of Records. So Joe Blow says, like yourself, hey, Gavin, I'm committed, get the truck. It comes in 8 months later, 9 months later, and there's been a year model change. Hey, Art, this is dead cost. It's gone up $12,000 or $6,000. Dodge went up $9,500 from 22 to 23.
Wow.
But from 23 to 24, it looks like it's going up about $3,500. I do think things are, like I said, starting slowly to stabilize. I'll say that fast 3 times. Starting to slowly stabilize. And I think sometime maybe early next year, first quarter, I think and after the election, that usually could throw some things too, not to get into politics, but
it makes sense.
Yeah, maybe interest rates maybe come down a little bit, inflation, whatever it might be. There's a lot of factors. I think we're starting to see some equipment shake loose, but interest rates are up. So many variables. But I do feel like there's changes coming maybe in early next year.
Well, I think I don't want to, speak for the entire industry, but I think that stability would be welcome, stability in pricing. And, you brought up what I believe is something very, very important, and you touched on interest rates. And as a tower myself, who has to borrow money, right, for my fleet,
Right.
et cetera, on occasion,
Everyone does.
that plays an important role, just as important, if not more important, than the cost of the equipment. Sometimes if the interest is high, it outweighs whatever price increases could be there. So yeah, very, very important.
One other thing I wanted to mention is not only has, as I mentioned, new truck prices have gone up, the used market has been very bare. So a lot of people are holding on to their used trucks and not giving it up. But if they do give them up or want to get rid of them, trade them in, whatever, or us to buy them, we're paying more. We're getting more in the market because the prices of new trucks have jumped. So therefore used have jumped. So I tell people, if you're ever thinking of getting out of the business, now's the time to do it because your trucks are more valuable than they've ever been. So we're seeing, and banks are a little hesitant to see like a 2016 Dodge flatbed, let's say, go for maybe $60,000, $70,000, when a new one might be 130 or so. It makes sense on paper, but the banks are like, well, wait a second, how is this possible? And a customer, like for instance, a customer might have bought a truck at 100. He put 200,000 miles on it in 4 or 5 years, and he's still getting maybe $60,000. So wow, the return has been pretty good in that aspect. But if now that same guy has to buy a truck, it's like, whoa, wait a second, my interest rates, the price per month has jumped up quite a bit. So
I see that makes a lot of sense. So it kind of sounds to me like what you're saying is that the price of used trucks has gone up partially because the price of new trucks has gone up, but also because availability times for builds have been extended. So if somebody really needs equipment, it's kind of like, hey man, like this is the truck that you can get right now. This is
absolutely. And another thing on top of, to your point, is this whole CARB thing with California Air Resources Board.
Yes.
It at the start of 23, technically all of these trucks should have a 2010 motor in it. Now there's been some variables with California and the DMV and the Highway Patrol on extensions, or allowing people to still drive a non-compliant truck into 23 to their registration ends, let's say in July. So people have been, and it's been sort of varied on who gets it, who doesn't, depending on the DMV or the state. I mean, it's a nightmare. There's no black or white. It's sort of gray in that aspect. Right. And of course, if you have gas trucks, you can continue to run them no matter what. Right. But people have been needing to get rid of their trucks. Right. So anyway.
Well, no, that's actually really good information, Gavin, because I don't want to, I tongue in cheek here, but I don't want to besmirch, or condemn my favorite public agency.
Yeah, right.
but the emissions regulations that were imposed, I don't know, what is this, 15, 16 years ago, have been not only impactful to the towing industry in terms of, I think what it did in California was it caused towers to prematurely have to replace their fleets. A result of the incoming legislation for reducing particulate emissions. But that has now, as we are nearing those milestones that were introduced with that legislation, now it seems to me that California towers, at least in the near future, are going to have continued obstacles in terms of complying with the emissions regulations and or repurposing fleet, exchanging fleet. It makes sense that we would see an influx in California trucks start to enter other states. That probably makes a lot of sense. Am I right?
Oh yeah, they already have, and they have been doing that. The other thing that now we're hearing, which I don't know if you've heard, but there's this whole argument between the state and manufacturers of diesel motors for commercial trucks, meaning we've heard that in the start of 24, there's going to be some penalties that might be coming down for trucks that are through Cummins in particular is a big manufacturer. I heard there's a lawsuit between Cummins and the state of California because any truck that comes in diesel wise, maybe after January 1, are going to be subject to tens of thousands of dollars of penalties if they're sold into California. Because this gentleman, Gavin Newsom, our governor, this is just speaking in California in particular. I know this might go out beyond that. But so trucks being sold in California, let's say the cab is 100 grand, now it might be 110. And they might only let a certain percentage of these trucks come in, where let's say there's a 5,000 trucks that come in, only a certain percentage might be allowed in, or a certain percentage of your fleet. I don't know just yet, but it's really scary to think of the future of what's coming with diesel trucks.
Right. And it's obviously hard to, I can speak as a tower here. I mean, it's hard to make decisions on your fleet if you are not certain what is going to be allowed or what is, disallowed, et cetera. I would like to know from you, given my experience in towing, our relationship and the many years that I've been buying trucks, just putting myself in the shoes of other towers, as you mentioned, like when I buy trucks, they're for a specific purpose. And, but what mistakes would you say you typically see towers make when ordering a truck? And what is your input on how they can avoid some of these, costly mistakes? I mean, because in my earlier days in towing, I've made mistakes in improperly speccing the truck when I order it. So what are the typical errors in whether it's, they just didn't know or they decided to, hey man, you built me this truck, it doesn't do what I thought it was going to do, can you chime in on that?
That's an interesting question. I mean, I don't really see too many problems when people order the trucks because I generally try to steer them in the right direction. But some people, I mean, obviously I'm not always right, don't always know everything, right? I mean, I'll be the first to admit, just ask my wife. But I think in general, towers think, especially maybe on the larger stuff, they think, well, all I need is such, like one particular truck, and they may not diversify. So if you start with something that's like medium duty and you like a 16-ton, let's say, and you're thinking it's going to do something the 35-ton will do, well, then it's going to lead to problems, Right. So I think the main thing with towers in general is neglect on their trucks. They need to be greasing it, have some sort of program like you probably do where totally, like if you don't have that, what do you have? Absolutely. Communication with your manager.
Yeah. And a follow-up to that, I know you touched on this a little bit. I think one thing that would be interesting to know, and I'm asking you this from the perspective of a tower, but I think people may be interested to know this about what you guys do in terms of builds. But your typical truck that you build, how specific is the build? Or I should rephrase this, like, is the build for a specific type of towing? Like, for example, I do private property towing, right? So I know what I'm ordering for you, it's for that purpose. Are you seeing more specific builds? Are you seeing more of, like, in other words, we talked a little bit about costs going up. So are towers looking to the builds and saying, I want this flatbed with an extra heavy wheel lift, let's say, for example, because, I've got a smaller fleet now as a result of the increased costs, and I need to do more with one truck. Are you seeing a shift there, or are towers still kind of just doing what they've normally done in terms of the builds?
I think towers are more aware today than they ever have been on what's needed. I think like somebody like yourself who goes to meetings, who pays close attention to the industry as a whole, you're good about updating yourself and what's going on in the industry. I think it's different for different companies. Like, for instance, I've sold to some guys up in Napa in the wine industry, and they don't know rollbacks or tow trucks from a hole in the wall. So I'm able to guide them on what they may need and what they want. But towers, other towers, like somebody like yourself, or even a bigger company that has diversified equipment, they generally know what they want. But if you're looking at cost, you have to look at cost and then what the product does for you. So for instance, you might need an auto loader, but do you need 50 extra lights? I mean, how about just 10 extra lights might help the cost, but still get you what you need,
Right.
So you sort of look, and I try to help people. Well, maybe you don't need these big boxes, and even too, sometimes people come to me and they say, well, I want a new truck, and they're maybe new in business or something.
Right.
Well, do you really need a new truck? I mean, I know it's great for warranty and everything like that. It's great for looks. It's a great representation of your new company, perhaps. But what about a good used truck? Payments are much lower. Maybe we can get you into something. So I'm always trying to weigh cost versus value, on what the guy or the woman gets.
Yeah.
And just communication is key, right?
Yeah.
To me.
Right. I wanted to ask you a little bit about your service department. I mean, we touched on this a little bit. You service the brands that you sell. I think on occasion you probably service brands that you don't sell either. In fact,
Sure.
I think you've done that for us. What type of repair issues do you typically see come into your service bays, and what sort of advice do you have for towers? I know that your service department, I've dealt with them over the years, but what type of advice do you have for towers to avoid the really costly ones? I mean, we touched on this a little bit, but
Yeah.
my experiences have been like, hey, if you neglect your trucks, man, you're going to run into some very costly repairs. If you neglect them, if you misuse them, if you use them outside of the manufacturer's suggested ratings. So yeah, what is the typical repair, and what are you telling your customers to do to avoid the big ones?
Yeah, I think, as I touched upon, neglect would be one. This truck is an extension of your business. It is your business. So this truck is going to make you money. So quality drivers, somebody that treats their truck that they're driving with respect. It's a mobile office. You're right, not overloading the trucks. I mean, you can overload, but I've always said it's like doing a 50-pound dumbbell. Yeah, you could do it once or twice, but you can't do it 8 to 10 times.
Right.
Something's going to happen to your arm. So, and grease is a good thing. And I think when something goes wrong, to address it right there, don't continue to neglect it. I think that's huge. Having a maintenance program, as I mentioned, where you're constantly bringing in the trucks at a certain time, a certain miles. Right. You're big on that. Communication with your manager, an understanding of what you expect of the truck, being washed, cleanliness, things like that. Right. We see trucks come in for electrical problems, cylinder problems, leaking, breaking, welds breaking, things like that. We even had some trucks, wrecker bodies, that I sold to New Orleans recently that had some manufacturer problems when they were, built from the factory. A fitting wasn't tight enough, and so it spewed hydraulic oil the first time it had a load. So, that's something that we don't test here. I mean, after we paint the trucks, we're not picking up loads to test them. But certainly if there's a problem, I mean, we're here to help in any way possible.
Would you say that a majority of the major repairs that come into your shop are as a result of neglect, or would you say it's like typical wear and tear?
I would say probably a little bit of both. Sorry to be on the fence.
No, it's okay. No, I mean, I really want to know. I mean, it's, because again, I've had my own experiences, and
yeah.
and it's obviously not cheap to repair a truck,
No, unfortunately, it's not.
Yeah,
But I think the longer you neglect something, or not even neglect something, but just sort of ignore what the problem is, oh,
right.
whatever, it can continue to leak.
Sure.
It's
It's
not,
still working,
yeah, it's not a bad leak, whatever. That's fine. I mean, I'm sure everybody does it, but at some point, the truck's going to say, hey, I need attention now, and it's probably going to cost you more later than it is now, so just take care of the problem now. And we try to do a good job with getting people in and out in a timely manner. We know that these trucks are very important to you, and we would like to get them out in a timely manner and do the job right. I mean,
right.
are we perfect? Absolutely not.
Sure.
First to admit,
Yeah.
but we try to put our best foot forward.
Well, from my experience, Gavin, you guys have been pretty close to perfect, so I can appreciate that.
Hey, say no more.
So it brings me to my favorite topic. You and I both are, I mean, for those that are, watching and listening, I mean, Gavin's office is about 20 miles from my office. So we're both in the San Francisco Bay Area. We're in the South Bay. Gavin's on the peninsula.
Silicon Valley.
Yeah, we're in Silicon Valley. And so, being in the Bay Area and dealing with high fuel costs, I mean, you're paying the same fuel costs we are for what you guys are doing. And obviously, we're using a lot of fuel in the transportation sector, period. And I both know, you and I both know, I should say, that the electric trucks and the electric chassis are coming. How soon, I know this is a kind of a loaded question here, but how soon do you anticipate you will begin exploring, if you already haven't, EV trucks? And I can just say, I'm super excited to see them coming, because I feel like this is a great way for towers, in the use cases that those trucks allow, because let's be honest, those trucks are not going to work for everybody. But I think a lot of metropolitan towers could have a good use case for an electric truck. When will we see them?
Yeah, and I have to compliment you because, and I'm not blowing smoke here, like you've always been on the forefront of EV or hybrid, whatever you want to say, in the tow industry. You've been really going down that road, kicking tires and trying to make something work. And unfortunately, we sort of have been striking out here and there on getting it done. But I too am excited to what the future could be with that. I do want to see something. And, originally back in the day, maybe 2010, 2008, maybe even 5, somewhere in there, there's been some hybrid units that have come out, and they had huge tax incentives, which is great. They just never really materialized. They never really took. And now there's been a big push for, complete EV units, and I'm all for it. And I would like to go down the road further with finding something, but there's been frame issues or fuel tank issues, battery issues,
Sure.
wheelbase issues, manufacturer issues, where these companies are really trying, and God bless them. It's just, we just haven't been able to get anything going just yet. And there's also what happened with that one deal where there was a lot of lawyers were sort of posturing on what information they could share.
Yeah, no, and I'll share a little bit. As a tower myself, thank you for the compliment there, Gavin. As a tower myself, I've looked into many different companies that are now starting to produce class 4 through soon to be class 8 chassis. I can say with some level of certainty that these manufacturers are going after the sort of the delivery market. We're still a little early on the vocational side, meaning, trucks that need hydraulic interfaces to operate. So I appreciate your explanation there. I think it's a little early, or at least that's been my experience thus far. I imagine, it's a little hard to say, but we're going to know something soon. There's a lot of companies that are knocking on the door. a lot of them happen to be in our backyard. So
Yeah.
I'm hoping that we will see something soon. I really appreciate your take on that. Well, I did want to, I know that we're all pressed for time here. I appreciate you coming on here, answering questions. I hope the towing audience appreciates it as well. And I do want to tell everybody who's watching and listening that House of Wreckers is, I believe, the only full service new and used tow truck builder and servicer. And if you'd like to contact Gavin or Johnny or Mike at House of Wreckers, all of the information for House of Wreckers will be in the video description. So, good luck to everybody in the industry. Thank you to Gavin. I really appreciate it. Please stay tuned. We're going to have a lot of relevant towing content. And maybe we'll see Gavin again soon talking about their first electric tow truck.
Hey, let's do it.
All right. Thanks again, Gavin. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Art. I really do appreciate it. And thanks again. It was wonderful to join you today.
Appreciate it. See you, Gavin.
Take care, Art.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.